What's up guys, it's Drac, and this is Nerf's latest and greatest flagship blaster for yet another new line featuring yet another new ammo type. This is the Nerf Pro Gel Fire Mythic. Borrowing a lot of words from a lot of different places, some of which I'm sure are meant to be cheeky and some of which are just interesting from the perspective of how blaster design works. Now I want to give a quick shout out to the attorney at Hasbro that is entering this video into legal evidence on their timeline. And I want to make a quick point of saying, first off, thank you to Hasbro's PR team for sending me a Gel Fire Mythic. And second off, I waited to make this video until I could buy my own at Target because I think that it's important to spend the $80 to have an unbiased perspective on a product like this, especially one steeped in so much and so flavorful controversy. So this is my entirely unbiased opinion of the latest Angelit or Gel BB or Water BB or whatever you want to call this category blaster, but this one being from easily the most notable, the highest quality, the largest production facility on, the market in toy blaster world. So coming at us directly from the #1 blaster brand, we have the Gel Fire Mythic. Now, the Mythic retails for $80 and uniquely, amongst blasters like this, it does come with its own battery, and it advertises that on the package. It also recommends eyewear, which it includes, which puts it in the same category as any other flagship or all-in-one gel blaster type product. They all come with a ton of ammo because the ammo is really cheap, and they all come with eyewear, rechargeable batteries because they kind of need them to actuate the gearboxes that are in these. So it looks like this battery is going to be 7.4 volts with 500 milliamp hours, which means that it's actually a remarkably small battery, but not entirely out of line for something that's as compact as this is. Really trying to stick to like kind of a concrete flavor to these things. So we'll start with the front of the box. The front of the box has the name and the product on it. It shows you very clearly that this is a hopper fed, so it's got a hopper on top. It's not like a magazine thing or anything internal. It's an external bottle hopper. It looks like it has an expandable stock, a removable suppressor, a foregrip that's built in. Where you would normally put a mag-in grip sort of magazine, this one has its battery compartment. And they kind of advertise that on the back where they say includes Mythic Blaster rechargeable battery, 800 round capacity hopper. That's coming with 2 packets of 5,000 rounds or gellets or packets. Then you've got the instructions, a USB to USB-C charging cable for that battery, and then you have the battery itself, of course. Features things like the trigger lock, like I said, the extendable stock. It looks like there is a dial on this that's going to control whether or not it's full or semi-auto. And other than that, I think that they debuted this at VidCon or HasCon or some con along that line, but for lack of a New York Toy Fair this year, everybody had to kind of get creative with how they released product. I, for one, was very humbled and appreciative to have multiple blaster companies launching new product at End War, and I think that this would have been an interesting include there, but Hasbro has never attended End War. Shocker. Let's get it out of the package. Let's take a look at what we got. All right, so starting with the contents of the package, we'll just do a brief overview here. You get the blaster itself. It does, in fact, have an extendable stock. You get the blaster with its removable battery in the grip here. Comes with a bottle. Then it's got the suppressor. And that's most of what's going on here. Now, of course, the bottle has a cap for if you want to leave your ammo hydrated on your way to and from transporting. You could, of course, leave it in the blaster, but assuming that you want it to be sealed, it does have a cap. You get 2 packets of 5,000 round gellets each, and then you get the charging cable as well as the removable suppressor. Now, we'll talk more about that when we talk about the blaster itself. Per usual, when companies do this first kind of included eyewear thing in the gel blaster line, for some reason, they just never want to decorate them. Now, I believe this says Hasbro on the side, but these are the flimsiest eye protection. Now, you don't need a lot of eye protection. These aren't airsoft BBs. They're exploding on impact, distributing a lot of force. They are ultimately gel, water, beads. So while the eye protection is absolutely necessary, you would be better served with literally anything that's, full on impact rated, and you could get something cheaper, nicer, better looking in the sunglasses realm, in the eyeglasses realm, at Home Depot with more side protection. And ultimately, I can't stand non-branded product when you're going to include something like this, to have something that is just the most boring and plain thing. It's almost like it's a necessary include, but it's so obvious that the company sees it as a necessary include. And I've roasted just about every company for including the 1.5 cent eye protection when they could be doing something cooler with rubberized earpieces or just anything. But again, I'm a little particular about my eyewear. So moving on, let's talk about the actual blaster from back to front. First off, this is one of the best collapsible stocks I've seen any blaster company do. And that's, it's good to see Hasbro doing something that they do well. Well, how much pressure can you put on it? Well, let's find out. That's, honestly, it bends a little, but not too much. I think that side to side, it's not bad. You guys want me to be harder on stock, so let's really lean into it. And I think that the stock is fine. I think that it's pretty good. It's relatively sturdy. And again, the action by which it tucks in and then tucks out means that you can go from SMG to something with a shoulder stock, like machine pistol to SMG, pretty comfortably, pretty quickly. Super flat on the back here, really could use some sort of curvature or just any sort of texturing. That's a pretty smooth mold release. You can see it coming off of my studio lights there. Could be better, but the actual mechanism by which it collapses and deploys is quite good. Over here, you have a tactical dial, right? That's off, nothing happens. That's on, single fire per trigger pull, and then supposedly 10 rounds a second in full auto. And if it's not, exactly 10, it's pretty close. My friend Hoffer over at Blaster Lab, he's done some tests and he says that it's pretty close to 10 in full auto. And I am inclined to believe him because that's something that he tends to do very well. He does mention that the feeding of the blaster can't keep up with the gearbox in the blaster. And that's not a surprise since it's being fed by gravity. The actual battery itself comes in this kind of pinchable, tiny capsule that's in the grip. It makes the grip pretty sizable, but for an $80 blaster, you don't expect smaller foam flingers to have this. So I think that for its merit, the grip is quite good. It's comfortable. The thumb port has plenty of room, and I'm a sucker for hexagons, right? And it's got this really sweet hexagon pattern on both places that your fingers touch. The trigger well itself is not bad. And then it looks like this is an additional safety where you can lock the trigger underneath here. I actually really dig that. I like having a mechanical lock for something that could be dangerous if you weren't wearing the proper eye protection. So even when it's in semi, if that's locked, that's a no-go. It's got a brief tactical rail up here. This is not an in-strike tactical rail. It looks like it wants to be pick rail, but in true Hasbro fashion, it's a little confusing. You couldn't get something on easily because this notch up here is preventing you from sliding on from the front, and then the hopper aperture here is preventing you from sliding on in the back. What do you put there? Maybe a laser, maybe a light. It is the only tack rail on the product, so you could put something up there, but it's in a very confusing place. Then you've got this built-in foregrip here, which again is meant more to be like your SMG. It's up here, you're over here, kind of maneuvering that way, and I think that that's all right. Of note, this is not an in-strike lug attachment in the front, although it works in a very similar fashion. It's far narrower, which makes sense. Your average gel ball is far narrower than a Nerf dart. So kind of their own non-proprietary but very simple suppressor attachment system. Of note, orange tip without it on, and then when you put it on, orange tip. Very interesting that this is the first blaster that Nerf has decided to try and brand as Pro, and it comes in a color scheme that mimics the Pro blasters that we see at Walmart and Target and what have you. It's doing a very clean gray, off gray, and then red coloration. For some reason, this entire hobby seems to have decided that my color scheme is the Pro equivalent. And, I guess the tournament record doesn't, I'm cheesing. It does look quite good though, and being in my color scheme makes me more favorable to say it's pretty sharp. It's got interesting beveling. If you look at the blaster from this angle, you can see that there's actually a curvature to it. So even though it is a traditional butterfly open into two-part shell, the sleek factor of necking this down in the front is something that you can get away with this internal suite and setup. And again, looks pretty handsome. You would not expect it to have that ability and also tuck the stock in all the way in like that, but it does it. It's very clean. It looks good. The only egregious thing on the blaster that I'm like, well, I don't really dig it is that, I suppose, a brief correction is that this is a tactical rail. I don't know what you're putting on this tactical rail. There's really no world where you want something on here except possibly ammo storage. And again, the containers don't have a way to, maybe we'll 3D print something that holds the cap, but now you have ammo storage. I don't get it. And then I like that they're telling you very clearly that eyewear is required. I think that they do a good job of that on the product packaging, and then again in the instructions. I don't know if you need to break up the blaster entirely other than the legalese of having this here. I think that you have for the first time ever, pretty clean sides with the logo and paint on both sides. It looks pretty good. At $80, it should look great from both sides. And then, you know, you have eyewear required. It looks like the kind of thing that you'd see on a seatbelt at an amusement park ride. And I'm just not sure it screams premium to me. But, you know, maybe legally it has to be a different color. It has to be neon. It has to be super visible. And for the people who wouldn't think about it otherwise or don't wear eyewear to, you know, their standard nonprofit Nerf event monthly meetups, which for us is just second nature. But for people who are getting into this in the first place, maybe it is good to have it right there so that when you plug in, you turn it. But it kind of is like the remnant of if there was a sign on my car next to the key that said, hey man, don't be drinking right now. I kind of would see that and I'd be like, well, duh. That's just my take. Safety first always. And I guess I applaud them for the inclusion of both the cheap eyewear and the very tactical reminder there. So I want to make sure this battery is fully and completely charged, and we've got to go swell up some balls. That's going to take about 3 hours. We'll give it 4 total to make sure that they're completely the right size so that they hit that barrel at exactly the right way, and we can take it outside and do a brief firing demo for you. Let's go. One thing that I would have liked to have seen was a funnel for this to make it easier to load, but I'm going to bleed off some of the water. And then another just freebie from design land over here for the mothership is that some small drainage holes in the base of this for when I'm loading it would be really useful. I'm not going to go to the overt trouble of measuring it, but Hasbro claims that this thing's going to hold about 800 rounds, which means that if you hydrate your entire packet, you should be able to get, theoretically, about 6. And since they probably err on the side of caution, maybe you'll be able to get 7 full sort of hoppers out of this. And then, of course, if you have multiple hoppers or if they choose to sell hoppers separately, you'll be able to put the cap on them, I guess, store them in a pocket or on a bandolier, something along that line or other. It is taking a while to load this without a funnel, and I guess if I was just willing to egregiously throw my ammo to the waste, I could do it faster. But again, kind of goes to show you that the primary advantage of all of these products, not just the Mythic, but any of the gel fire blasters, is that the ammo is, while not reusable, incredibly inexpensive shot for shot, and you have a large amount of onboard capacity for something like this. So I'm not even going to bother filling it up all the way because, again, keeping up with that rate of fire, it does bind kind of in this funnel here. So the funnel built in is designed to let gravity push these through. When everything's clean, it should be in good working order. If everything's not clean, you wind up with some issues. One thing that I do want to point out is that while this and this and this and this and everything is incredibly tight on the blaster itself, if you look with very minimal shaking, the hopper is barely being held on. And it's quick insert, right, into that threading there, like so, and then you quarter turn it into place, but it just seems like, and you know, maybe I'm nitpicking, right? Maybe it would be difficult for it to fall off, but it seems like it would be not impossible. You know what I'm saying, guys? So let's pop our lock into fire. Nope, that was fire mode. We'll switch, we'll start with some semi-auto shots. Let's turn on our ballistic chronograph here and start going to town with the old gel fire Mythic. I really do like the shell. I wish that the hopper was anywhere else, or maybe a narrower or thinner profile. I'm trying to decide as I make these reviews whether or not I want to develop aftermarket stuff for something like this. And it's just hard to imagine a lot of these being sold at 80 United States dollars to people who aren't aware that there are cheaper and certainly higher performance options in that price range in this category. But that's one shot. We're getting errors over the chronograph. Is it going to be possible to get data? There's one at 119. That sounds about right. I think due to the time of day, this is might be partially time of day and partially that it's translucent ammo, right? So there's also just a note, an electronic lag. If you work the trigger as quickly as you can in semi-auto is, wait, what the heck? Well, that's interesting. So again, that's just like a case of the ammo not being agitated enough from a standard firing position to... Is it doing it again? Well, it did, and then it didn't, and then it did, right? So for the purposes of I could only get one thing to read. Let's try switching to full auto and see. Having a difficult time getting readings. Let's go ahead and say that we got one that was 119, and we'll defer to the comment section to see if other people are able to provide real-time data. Translucent ammo, weird ambient lighting. Let's get some range ammo and see, or some shots down range and see kind of how that fares. So from a level firing position, looks like we're getting 50, 55 foot shots. You know, that's assuming when we fire. That's very frustrating. If I shake it like this, and my on target in semi-auto is okay. In full auto, let's shake it up. And that's kind of what these things do really well, right? Is accuracy through volume. I can tell you based on the range though, that this is a significantly lower FPS than something like, say, you know, the Splatter Ball or anything in that category. So accuracy through volume, not bad. Let's go ahead and pull this off, although I think that there's nowhere near enough barrel drag to do much with it. It seems like I'm gonna do something you shouldn't do. I'm gonna set it to off, and there's no hop up in the product, which makes it a little more difficult to aim. Maybe machine pistol mode. And so to its credit, very high rate of fire. We've been firing since we started this, and needs a more consistent feed aperture. It's trying to go too wide into too narrow into. And then of course, I mean, this is not going to fire from any other position as opposed to the ones that have magazines with gearboxes. You could start firing around corners like this. I think that we're all safe to say that nobody's death the kidding this thing, right? But make sure that you are keeping your hopper amply agitated in order to keep firing. Like I said, target's 25, 30 feet away. It's doing a great job, right? Accuracy through volume. I don't know why you'd ever leave the full auto because the semi-auto has so much lag. Again, like I'm getting one shot for every 2 trigger pulls in semi-auto if I'm trying to fire fast, whereas in full auto, it's firing faster than I think anybody could click the switch inside. My overall impressions of the product are, at $80, I would expect a more refined product. At $80, I would expect something with slightly more compatibility with Nerf. If you're gonna do something Nerf and call it Pro, I think that you really should have in-strike compatibility in your rails and your muzzles. I think that the shell itself is great, but you get a lot of liberties using that tiny gearbox that comes in some of the $20, $30 gel blasters in a package like this. Overall, shell design is good, color scheme is good, overall features and ergo are pretty good. It's just kind of a shame that compared to other gel blasters, it's a little anemic in the performance category, which I guess we've just been spoiled by the word pro. We think that that means performance, and in fact, it means whatever each individual company wants it to, right? But that's an honest look at the Gelfire Pro. We'll probably talk about this entire category at a later date, just from a neutral perspective, because it's very interesting what's going on within the category from a corporate perspective right now. But it's interesting to see Hasbro trying something yet again in a new ammo type and category. And honestly, this time it's in a shell that's really doing some cool stuff design-wise and looks pretty refined. You can tell me in the comment section down below, like, have you been sold on gel blasters yet? Are you buying gel blaster products yet? I know that I'm doing it in the hopes that there's eventually a battle or an event that I can take them to, but especially in North America and the States, it's hard to get past the fact that especially at the $80 price point, you could go have a lot of fun with an entry level, like super entry level, mind you, airsoft loadout and do something kind of along that line. Now I know that airsoft isn't available everywhere, so to that, hopefully the Nerf Pro Gelfire line has good international distribution and maybe it'll catch some wind over there. But I have a full lineup of all of the gel blasters right now. I'm very excited to see what becomes of them. And, you know, I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm interested to see what happens with it. Again, I do have a sample from Hasbro. This is not that sample. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of comes in the future pipeline in terms of promotional and maybe even event space, as it's getting support from something with such a robust marketing budget. But as of right now, this is definitely a backyard blaster, and its competition within that space is very interesting and well documented on this channel. So that's my take. I think that this is a little wobbly. I think that $80 is a little bit overpriced. And I think that as far as low FPS gel blasters go, everything else is pretty standard, so to speak. But that's just my take. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Are you excited for water BBs? Are you excited for gel blasters? What do you think of the Mythic in general? And are you planning on picking one up? Let me know down below. I'll see you guys very soon with more content. Happy Halloween. And I do want to give a quick condolence to all of the people who have been affected by Hurricane Ian, not the least of which my constituent Frank Cooper over here on the YouTube lands. I hope that he and his family have a quick return to Florida and that everything goes well for them in terms of recovering their property and vehicles. I know that that was big difficulty for a lot of people in the Southeast, and up here in Atlanta, we've been dealing with, a lot of the proverbial hurricane refugees. So heart goes out to Coop. Hope that everybody who was disaffected by the hurricane is in good shape, and a happy upcoming Halloween to you all.